On this week's GTA 6 o'clock, more RockStar leaks. We can debunk this right now on this episode. Take-Two reconfirm release date.
Could it be delayed? Of course. But they're still of the belief that it's coming fall 2025.
And the movie that inspired the story. I saw a very mediocre film last night, but it has some good ideas.
What if we made it good?
It's all here on this week's GTA 6 o'clock. Yes, hello and welcome to episode 42 of GTA 6 o'clock. I am your host, James JJ Jarvis, and you are listening to the world's most in-depth and best connected GTA 6 show. Alongside me today in the studio is Dan Dawkins. And Dan, there is a lot of interesting things to talk about today, and then there's also some numbers to chat about.
So many numbers. Look forward to it.
So first of all, thanks to everybody who watched last week, and I saw a lot of people saying on the dual wielding point that, hey, you could actually dual wield weapons in a previous GTA game. Don't you remember San Andreas? And yes, I do remember San Andreas. And it is true that in that game, when you reach like Hitman level, you could dual wield the same weapons. But what I was actually talking about, and I probably should have been more explicit, was that you could have different weapon slots for each hand in the game. So you could, for example, have a pistol in one and an SMG in the other, but you get to mix and match between them. It's not like you pick up a pistol and you're automatically dual wielding two pistols. So just wanted to clear that up and say, I remember San Andreas. Thank you very much, everyone, for pointing that out. But this is slightly different and something that we haven't seen in a GTA game before. There were also some great suggestions for the movies that we were talking about that give you the GTA 6 vibes. A lot of people saying like True Lies, Place Beyond the Pines, all of those kind of things. But one thing that I wanted to specifically mention was an email that we got from Jason on this very topic. So thank you, Jason, for getting in touch, who said, hey guys, love the show. The movie I thought of when I first saw the GTA 6 trailer is 2020's infamous The One starring Bella Thorne. It's less about the setting, more about the characters and basic story. It's about a young Bonnie and Clyde-like couple who go on a crime spree in the modern day, one in which social media plays a pivotal role. I'm not saying the motivations or characters will be terribly alike, but there's a very similar vibe, at least superficially, if you ask me. Now, what I went away and did, Jason, is when I looked at the trailer, I'm definitely going to go and watch the film, because I feel like there is a shot-for-shot comparison that you can do here with the GTA 6 trailer that is, I feel like it's going to be almost identical. Now, read into that what you will, and we can probably put some comparison clips on screen here, but I'll read you the synopsis of the film, Dan, which I think is actually really interesting if you relate this to what we know about GTA 6. So, living in a small Florida town, tick already. We're in Florida. We're in the right place. And working at a diner was never Ariel's, Bella Thorne's, dream life. She's always wanted more. Fame, popularity, admiration. When she falls for a recently paroled young criminal named Dean, played by Jake Manley, she drags him back into a life of danger, learning that posting their criminal exploits on social media is an easy way to viral fame. Obsessed with the rising number of followers, they embark on a dangerous adventure together that leads to robbery, cop chases, and even murder. Heading to Hollywood, the city of the stars, they will realize what it takes to become famous and must decide if this dangerous lifestyle is really worthwhile. A lot of the points in here, I think, if you relate that to the trailer, like I said, could be a very good basis of a plot of a video game. I think they might take some of these elements, and as I say, some of the shots in the trailer are the same, but if we take the fact that maybe Lucia is desperate to be famous, and it's a comment on like how everybody wants to be famous these days, and they'll do almost anything to try and get their moments, 15 minutes in the sun, it could be that the way that social media is integrated into GTA 6 is along these kind of lines of like, are the main characters trying to get famous in some way, and is it related to them doing more and more crazier things and robberies and that kind of thing. So I think this is a really interesting point, and I don't know if you've got any extra thoughts on it, Dan.
No, other than to say I didn't watch Infamous. Aesthetically, there's a lot of parallels, certainly in the trailers. I like that idea of it creates an extra reason for social media usage in the game. I think that's really interesting. I guess, though, what I would say is, like, just literally ripping off a film that came out a few years ago would feel a bit un-Rockstar.
Of course.
And so whether, great minds think alike, and it's not a theme that others haven't explored, I suppose, that would make sense. But yeah, I can't imagine, imagine that Rockstar spent 10 years building GTA 6 and they struggled to make it work, and then someone turns up one day and goes, "Hey, I watched this film last night, it was pretty good. Should we just base the entire game on that?"
Well, I mean, based on the reviews, I don't think they were going to say it was pretty good.
Yeah,
I saw a very mediocre film last night, but it has some good ideas.
What if we made it good? But I like the idea of your crimes or the way you broadcast them adding to some degree of cachet. I think that's interesting. We don't know much about how social media will work in GTA 6, but that would add an extra element. And we speculated, I think, on the things like the rally meets and the different things we've seen people doing look like they've got likes on them, and people. So that might be part of it. I don't want to speculate too far because, again, I'll be very far from the safe waters of truth and out somewhere far less certain.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting concept that if there was something to do with, and we've talked about this before, something to do with growing your own social following within the world, and then other people react to you depending on how famous you are, it could be a really interesting mechanic that we haven't seen. Yeah, obviously we've seen it in TV and films before, but not in a video game.
Yeah, I think to have a social media presence within a virtual world itself is really fascinating. So that your character is almost like the top social media star of a place that doesn't really exist. That's quite interesting. But then by virtue would make you a famous real world person. So that's an interesting thing. I don't know how that would work, or even if that's what they're thinking. But that would be a unique concept to explore, I feel.
Yeah, even if you then extrapolate that into GTA Online and say part of that is now your character, like we referenced before. Like, what if you can just become a wildlife photographer within GTA Online and become famous for taking really cool wildlife pictures? Maybe in GTA Online you end up with your own art gallery, and then people are coming to look at your pictures, and then, like you say, by virtue of that, people find out who you are in real life, and then you're like, look, yeah, I take these pictures in the game. It could be a very interesting cycle of how all of that kind of thing works. So
yeah, let's see how ambitious Rockstar are going to be, because it makes my mind want to fall off thinking about it.
All right, well then let's move on to some files that have been allegedly left in the PC launcher of the RockStar PC launcher. This is from last week, but it happened after we recorded the episode, so I thought it's worth touching on this week. So a recent GTA update, if you haven't heard about this, a recent GTA update on PC, which brought in the anti-cheat systems, also allegedly left some files behind. And we should say allegedly, because it's very hard to confirm this at this stage, because if it was there, it was very quickly updated and everything was removed. But what apparently was inside the launcher is a folder system for what you'd expect, GTA 5 and the Social Club, but also for Red Dead Redemption, GTA 5 Gen 9, and Americas. Now, let's take these one at a time. GTA 5 Gen 9, I think, is expected to be an update to the current version, which brings in some new features like ray-traced shadows and reflections that we've seen on the PlayStation 5 versions of the game. Haven't made its way to PC yet, some of those features. Red Dead 1 has long been rumoured of coming to PC, and this isn't even the first leak that we've seen about it. I think even Sony put it on a listing on the store and then immediately took it down. So that feels like it could be plausible and is coming, which is the problem with all of this stuff, because it's just a folder structure, And all of these things are plausible and are sort of known and are definitely things that people want to see. So it's hard to then, without seeing it with my own actual eyes, to say that this is 100% real. But of course, it's the Americas folder that's interesting, because if this leak is real and this was left in the official RockStar launcher, it 100% confirms that GTA 6's internal codename is Americas, which hasn't been changed since the 2022 leaks, which I find slightly strange. I don't know about you, Dan, but if it was me and everything had leaked, everyone knows what the codename is, in the next 2 years, I'd probably change that codename just in case something else happened again. And if someone else gets in, they're not like, I'll just go to the Americas folder and find all the stuff again. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't change that, which is why this feels a little bit not quite right to me.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. What I'm laughing about is the, and again, maybe not the source, but the reporter of this rumour is our friend Liam. Do you remember Liam?
Yeah.
Who came out and said, GTA 6 is delayed, say my friends. And I don't mean Liam any ill will here. He's now the first to report on what we're going to talk about in a minute, the financial statement saying it's still on track. That news I reported, I'm pleased to report my news is wrong.
I was wrong.
That I find amusing. But yeah, that doesn't mean that this information per se is wrong. Yeah, it's a surprise they would keep calling it Americas. Like maybe it could be a mistake. It could be a logistic thing of maybe they had the conversation of let's change the folder, and then someone would go, oh my God, there's like 70 billion versions of this folder. If we have 2 of them in existence and some of the errant ones still exist, is there a danger that certain things get dropped in the wrong folders? And at a very boring logistical level, and that's all a thing you can get around. It's just practically they might go, we're too far down the road. People know, just keep calling it Americas. I don't want 2 sets of project files or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that. Maybe it's as simple as a practical decision, and then they obviously don't expect something like this to happen down the line. Now, the most exciting bit of it being called Americas is it's called Americas, and like what that might mean for the bigger world of GTA 6 and GTA Online.
Yeah, and I guess, to take it at its base level, the Americas, hopefully, as most people know, is basically the American continent. So North America, South America, Central America, all of those 3 regions are all collectively the Americas. So that goes from the top North America all the way down through like Brazil, Cuba, like all the way down. Am I suggesting that we're going to travel to all of these regions? No. But calling it the Americas does lend a little bit more weight to things like the Bahamas and Cuba somehow being featured in the game. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just call it like Project Florida or a completely different name like they had for GTA 5, like Rush or something that doesn't make any sense? Calling it the Americas seems to me to explicitly tie it to an area of the world. And if it wasn't as broad as encapsulating more than one of those places, then why not just call it something else?
Yeah, I like this stuff we talk. A lot of these things we referenced previous episodes. I wonder if there's an element of the Americas being like capsule locations, like that really fabulous Red Dead Redemption 2 place you spoil for me in great beauty. But that sort of thing might still be part of the plan.
Yes.
Or is it genuinely other countries within the Americas, or is it's also Liberty City? It's also, I just can't believe it. I can't believe they would do that though. Like not on an immediate roadmap. It might be like at some stage maybe Rockstar come clean and go, here is our version of the MCU where we reveal to you in 2027 it's this, 2029 it's this. Almost like going, the next movie or the next installment is we're going to bring San Andreas to online at this date.
Yes.
I can see a world where that happens, where it's a real piece of GTA world building, but these are big assumptive leaps on my part. I just think, as you say, it's interesting that it would not have been changed, and whether that's because it actually still is the Americas or it's just more boring logistical reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting bits, and I would say that to me that suggests that we are going to move around some regions maybe more than we think. So we've always had that one or two missions that have been away from the central map. So we've gone to North Yankton, we went to Guarma in Red Dead 2. So they've always had those places that you do jump away from the main map for a little bit and then you come back. And I guess the whole point of you coming back is that eventually you have to give people the opportunity to free roam around this massive open city slash state slash country or whatever they end up doing. So you can't have a storyline that jumps around too many different locations that are like too exotic. Otherwise you just end up like, oh, where's the real city? Like, which bit am I actually living in? But I think that, maybe we'll do it more than once in GTA 6. Maybe we'll go in between two places, or we'll visit a selection of them rather than just one thing. But interested to see how that all turns out. Anyway, there was one other thing in that, is that there was some reports that said there was a file contained in that folder or in that RockStar launcher, which was allegedly like saved data from GTA 6. And I think people were saying that it was saved data for Jason, but actually we can debunk this right now on this episode, because the file name was like JSON, and then it had like some America stuff within it. And I think that's the lead people went down. But in fact, the file is a JSON file, which is a JavaScript object notation file, which the official explanation is a standard text-based format for storing and exchanging data between systems. JSON files are commonly used by web developers to transfer data between a web application and a server. And there was nothing else within that file that had any other details of characters or locations or anything. There was some like language stuff, but nothing that we're going to go like, actually that does confirm that it's anything to do with it being a save file or the character being called Jason. It's just quite funny that JSON is almost Jason, and I can see why people would make that leap.
Yeah, and thank God there were no LCIA files in there or similar notation, or the world would have melted.
And then the next thing then this week, Dan, is that much like those leaks, just at the end of last week's episode, on Wednesday the 18th, which was 1 week ago, there was Take-Two's virtual annual shareholder meeting, of which they said some interesting things, and then a lot of things that were, well, they didn't really say it. They wrote down a lot of things that were less interesting in a massive document. But we did get a statement from Strauss-Zelnick on GTA 6, right?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing you should take from what was literally hundreds of pages of exceedingly complex notations, financial projections, risk mitigation factors, it's an annual statement for a massive billion-dollar PLC. It's really, really in-depth. The thing you should take away is in the opening shareholder statement, Strauss-Zelnick wrote down or said, "We believe that RockStar Games will deliver an unparalleled entertainment experience with the planned release of Grand Theft Auto 6 in the fall of calendar 2025. And our expectations for its commercial impact continue to increase." So, I mean, that's it. It's laid out. That's them saying, at this point in time, GTA 6, there's no mention of it's not delayed. It's just that delay was almost like a ghost delay. It never happened.
Yeah.
It's just saying it's expected to release at this time.
Yeah, yet again, we are going to say it one more time, that it's still coming fall of calendar 2025 at this moment in time. I don't know if you believe that they have put that in this statement in a roundabout way to combat that rumor that it had been delayed, but they're always going to ignore that rumor of the delay unless they have to come out and say it's been delayed. But I don't know if you think them reaffirming this is them basically saying, we saw the report, we're not going to say anything about it, but we are going to reconfirm the date.
I think very likely that. I think somebody somewhere would have said we need to make a conscious statement that reaffirms that this game is scheduled for this date. So it's as clear as it is, literally written down in Strauss-Zelnick's forwarding statements, as clear as it can be. Now, as I say, there's hundreds and hundreds of pages of additional information. A statement I pulled out that I thought was amusing in one of the other many documents, and it says, by the way, forward-looking statements are based on the belief of the management and made on assumptions based on information currently available to us. So, like, it's just a get-out clause for what we say today may not turn out to be true. So, like, could it be delayed? Of course. But they're still of the belief that it's coming fall 2025. That's great news for us, right? Great.
For us, explicitly for us, yes.
Yeah, for us, the community of GTA fans, especially for people making a show about GTA.
Yeah.
But it's tremendously good news. Now, I did a little bit of digging around, because I think people are always looking, every time RockStar say or write anything, what are the hidden nuggets in this giant set of documents? And like, what is... And we had a bit of confusion, like, what is the virtual annual shareholder meeting as compared to the investor calls? So every quarter, every financial quarter, they do an investor call, which is the same cast of characters from within Take-Two. It's like Carl Slatoff, Strauss Zelnick, Lainey Goldstein, who's the CFO. All these people basically report on the last quarter of information. They update their projections going forward, and that's in a sort of public-facing way. And then they are quizzed actively by an invited panel of analysts, and the analysts ask quite probing questions, largely about financial performance. But it's pretty obvious some of those analysts just really want to play GTA, and they ask what sounds like highfalutin questions, meaning, is GTA on track? Give me a crumb of information about GTA. So there's loads of that stuff. What I thought was interesting is the annual shareholder meeting isn't that. By definition, it's annual. It's reporting a lot of information that's already in the public domain, so it reiterates what would have been the last financial year's figures, which we already knew and have been published. So that stuff was all out there. It's kind of I use this word lightly, a public-facing friendly version of those results. There's nothing friendly about this at all. It's horrendous.
It's not that public-facing either.
No, it's horrendous. But it means that anyone who owns shares in Take-Two can attend this forum. And if you were like a shareholder at a certain date, you could follow a link and you could have taken part in the call. What blows my mind is that I listened to the call was like 9.5 minutes. And what they essentially did, there was 3 minutes of explaining who could and who couldn't attend, and reasons that it was allowed, and how shareholders could or couldn't vote for the motions. There were 3 main motions they discussed. Now, these are quite inside baseball, but I think they're still interesting. One was, who is part of the executive committee or the directors board at Take-Two? And there's 10 people who are part of that directors board. The second part was talking about essentially who gets paid what. And it was they're putting forward a new compensation package for those directors. And the final bit was like deeply boring. Well, unless I'm missing a trick, was they're just appointing new accountants or confirming Ernst & Young as their accountants for the current financial year.
Yeah, now what a meeting that would have been. In this meeting, we're going to confirm to you the accountants we're going to use for the year going forward.
And as a shareholder, I don't think you probably have that strong a view on that. You probably they advise you. They advise you. We advise you saying yes to these things. A lot, it sounds like it was yes. What surprised me is nobody during the call opted to put in questions. That surprised me that there were no addressable questions. I guess it's that classic thing of when you're on a call of gazillions, nobody wants to say anything, and everyone is just there to...
Yeah, and I think like you say, in that 4-minute explanation at the very beginning, they went over and over quite explicitly that if you are going to ask a question, it has to directly relate to these 3 things that we're talking about.
Yeah, the most boring things in the world.
So unless you've got a question on, are Ernst & Young the best accountants for this thing, you can't then slip in, and also, is GTA 6 coming? Because they'll just shut it down and it's not worth it. So, it proved a difficult forum for questions because, as you say, everything was sort of already agreed. They were just hoping everyone said, yes, carry on.
And you'd really have to know your onions, as they say, to interrogate it. Like, of their directors board of 10, they listed reams and reams of stats about the composition and makeup of that board and the people who are on it. Obviously, Strauss-Zelnick is on it, and he's like the chairman of the board, and he has been for a very long time. And there's various other, largely media figures. There's someone from like the United Talent Agency. There's like private equity backers in there. There's people from technology. Then they've got grids of data where they show the relative skill sets of each director and how they're covered on all bases.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's very box ticking, literally box ticking, slightly boring stuff. There's some kind of what do you call it, like DEI facing and some environmental facing, ESG facing hurdles they leap. It's and the biggest takeaway I think we were talking about this off air was like, holy wow, the directors board is a group of old people set to make a lot of money.
Well, already making a lot of money.
Yeah, making even more money, and lays bare everything. Everyone who's got a beef with hypercapitalism, it's right there in that director board, and like the obscenity of the top end. I'm not saying those people don't work hard and blah blah blah, and maybe they deserve it, but like it's sort of disgusting.
Yeah, don't go look at it if you don't want to be sad about.
Yeah, it's sort of disgusting.
Everything.
And RockStar's, for those who are interested, the age profile of the directors board isn't great. Like it's the youngest person there is like 52, and then there's a number of people in their 70s. We were both taken aback to remind ourselves that Strauss-Zelnick is in fact 67 himself. Very sprightly 67. Apparently he's very dedicated to exercise, and we live in a world where people live longer and blah blah blah. But again, I was surprised that he's slightly older than I thought he was. And there's not many shocks in there. Like, they're not the most diverse board. There's a couple of female members. There's a bit more other representation, but it's a quite, if you want to say there's quite a lot of old white dudes in there, you can definitely find it. About 50% of that, I would say. So,
but I guess like mostly this is like the mothership company take two. Like it's not the people who are even it's not even a RockStar level of
it's
management.
way above. It's way above. Yeah, like this is like, to the average RockStar employee, these people don't exist. They're like the ghosts who patrol above. They're the board of directors who will like approve super top line. They're the accountability to the CEO.
Yeah.
The thing that's, again, without me knowing intimately how this structure works, the thing that is a bit weird is Strauss-Zelnick is like CEO of it, and he's also the chairman of the board, and it feels a bit weird to me. And then there's a whole element of this that I won't get too much into the weeds of it, but like if the first part of the call was about the composition of the board, and there's reams and reams of information on that. The second bit that's probably a bit juicier, but I'm loath to go into it because truthfully I don't fully understand it, and I could be wrong. They're talking about how they want to restructure the remuneration package of the directors. Like, long story short, it's arguing over, do you want to be disgustingly rich or absurdly disgustingly rich? It's all like, to give you a flavour of it, for example. So Strauss-Zelnick in financial year 2023, his total package was worth a total of like $42 million for that year, and that was like definitely not a GTA year. That was just a normal year. And I guess this is maybe of interest, is that the way these type of execs are paid like broadly breaks down to three factors. One is the salary. I mean, this was amusing because there's a curious anomaly where in one section of the listing, it talks about Strauss-Zelnick being paid $1 a year. Don't cry too many tears for him, because there are other ways he maintains money. That's almost like an obligation thing, a legal thing, so he can still receive his health benefits.
Yeah, you have to pay people a salary,
which he could easily afford given everything else he receives. But most execs then get a large percentage of their pay, like 70% to 75%, is performance based for the year. So it's delivering on the company's profit targets or EBITDA targets for the year. And then there's another tranche related to like long-term incentive options. So it's often things like if an exec stays with a company for 3 years and unlocks a massive raft of shares, which they can then sell. It's all these, and the package is, it's split up in percentages. So say most of it is about performance in the here and now. Some of it is longer-term loyalty bonuses, essentially.
Yeah.
Now, as far as I can understand, the crux of the proposal, and this is like 75 pages in, and most of it is saying, here's how a compensation package works. Here's how our compensation package compares to the industry. Here is 20 pages of why and how we make money and why we're worth it. And he goes through all of this stuff. And then there's eventually like a sentence in bold where it talks about, because of the way their incentive structure was created, it says, adjusted EBITDA, which is profit for the fiscal year 2024, was 953.6 million. That was their, like, I think their ambition, and they achieved actual of 845.2 million, which I think is essentially saying, we think the targets were set too high. Poor us, we didn't get the level of bonus we anticipated because the targets were set too high. The bit I haven't got into the weeds of is how are they restructuring the levers between salary, profit in the here and now, and long-term incentive. I think essentially it was an argument for we need to be less exposed to volatile predictions. They're just raining money. It's going to rain.
And what you'd really want to do if you were those people is to say, like, are you sure that the GTA 6 is going to come out in 2025? Because if you are, then maybe I'll adjust some of these sliders to benefit, some kind of financial gain, that when we make loads of money at the end of next year, potentially, I'm in a good place to receive some of those bonuses.
And this was a bolded sentence in the pages and pages. It says, and I've got to make something clear here. So there's an entity known as ZMC listed within their many, many pages of information. Like, ZMC is a private equity firm owned by, dun dun dun, you guessed it, Strauss-Zelnick, who seems to run absolutely everything. Now, the beneficiaries of ZMC are essentially Strauss-Zelnick, who receives 60% of its targeted payout, and the other is Carl Slatoff, who's like his other sort of partner in, I wouldn't say partner in crime, partner in business at RockStar, who receives 40%. So, like, ZMC is a code word for how much money are those two going to be paid, and the split is that Zelnick gets more of it. And there's a sentence where it says, as a result of the brackets of the way we set targets and didn't quite reach them, ZMC and our other NEOs, so that's again the other people in the directorship, receive below target bonus payouts under the fiscal 2024 annual incentive plan. Don't cry for me, Argentina. So it's basically saying they got a bit less money.
Yeah.
And I think this is all, and I'm not smart enough to fully understand how this works. I'm blown away that, Zelnick can be like CEO, chairman of the board, and own a private equity firm that receives benefits from the operations of this larger company. I'm not smart enough to understand that, and someone maybe cleverer and more understanding of accounts than me can set me straight. I just find it staggering there's that structure in place, and it sounds like everything's coming up Zelnick in it.
Yeah. Well, and if not this year, next year will be a great year.
Coming up really that way. And I guess, the point is that, because you're worth it, L'Oreal style. Because he's worth it. And they've got reams and reams of graphs talking about shareholder remuneration. And if you'd invested $100 at this date, it would be worth this at this date. I get it. He's grown the company. He's made it big. The other bit I thought was interesting in all these reams of documents was they talked about, and they're legally obliged to declare, risks facing Take-Two Interactive and ergo RockStar. And there's a section, and there's all sorts of things here. I'll just give you a flavour of them.
Yeah, because there's, again, another 10 or so pages
I'll be
about
talking
all
for
the
hours.
risks.
So they left to list everything, even if it sounds too stupid to even say. So it's like risks relating to our business and industry. Number 1, our industry is highly competitive. Number 2, uncertainty of achieving market acceptance, delays or disruption for our products. Number 3, we face development risks and must adapt to changes in software technologies. Number 4, the development and use of AI in our products may represent operational and reputational risks. Increased use of mobile devices for gaming will drive future growth of mobile gaming. This goes on to 45-ish points of things that are a threat to a games creator, essentially. The other bit within that, and then it goes into much more detailed depth of each sub-point. The thing I thought was interesting, it's not new news, but it's interesting to see them say it. In one of the sections of risks, it talks about cybersecurity. And then it says, we are faced and in the future could face sophisticated attacks, including attacks referred to as advanced persistent threats, which are cyber attacks aimed at compromising our IP and other commercially sensitive information, such as the source code and game assets for our software or confidential customer or employee information. Now, that's like a very generic statement, but then it specifically references the major GTA leak. And this is I think it's instructive to see the way RockStar describe it, because this is obviously the truth, because they wouldn't be able to list it otherwise. So it says, in September 2022, we experienced a network intrusion in which an unauthorized third party illegally accessed and downloaded confidential information from RockStar Games systems, including early development footage for the next Grand Theft Auto. So subsequently, also in September 2022, an unauthorized third party illegally accessed credentials for a vendor platform that 2K Games uses to provide help desk support to its customers. The unauthorized third party sent a communication to certain players containing a malicious link. 2K Games immediately notified all affected users and took steps to restrict further unauthorized activity until service was restored. So we all know about the leak. That's been much reported. It's just interesting to hear it described in those words. The second bit, we were talking about it off air. I just can't remember it. I don't know whether it was like a hack of a direct RockStar system or something else, but it sounds like someone sat out hokey pokey spam emails that RockStar pretty soon closed in on. I just can't remember it. So I thought that was an interesting thing. And if anyone in the comments can remember said incident, please set us straight. But yeah, it's just a staggering list of risks. Another one that leapt out to me was it does also cite the incredible risk of key creative talent leaving the business. Perhaps pertinent because in the past RockStar have, I wouldn't say lost, people have left RockStar who were prominent. Dan Houser, Geronimo Barrera. They've had Imran Sarwar. They've had a lot of characters who were big within RockStar leave. Yeah. And then it talks also about a major risk were the directors to leave. Ergo again, Zelnick and Slatov. So it's just interesting to see it all laid out and where they see as the weaknesses of their business model.
Yeah, and as said at the beginning, the risks of what happens if those people leave, then it affects. It doesn't explicitly probably affect the day-to-day development of those games, but it affects the perception of Take-Two as a company. And if those people leave, what's going to happen? What are the next plans? All of that kind of stuff. But yeah, interesting to see it all laid out. Appreciate you going through the 100-page document to pull out those nuggets, Dan. That's very helpful. But I think that about wraps it up for this week. If you were going to have one takeaway, it is that, two takeaways, is that GTA 6, as stated, is still on track, as we keep saying, for fall 2025. And we should all go away and watch Infamous and see if we can pull out any interesting tidbits or things that might relate to GTA 6 and has it had any effect on the story? Are they going to pull bits out of it? I'm really interested in that and what you guys think about it. So if you've got any thoughts or any other suggestions, get in touch with us on Twitter at GTAVOclock. You can email us at gtavio'clock@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment below if you are listening on YouTube. And if you are listening on YouTube, why not hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and so you never miss another episode. Dan, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will be back next week for another episode of GTA 6 O'Clock.